industries inside political realm. So more or less we can distinguish two general approach. First, this is the idea of cultural economy, so which is the core of creative industries. So the activities of cultural industries involving some forms of creativity in their production, and the cultural industries are concerned with the creation and communication of symbolic meaning. So, and of course, their output embodies, at least potentially, some forms of intellectual property, and these three, points are more or less defining what we call the cultural economy. It means that more or less we can distinguish two general approach. First is the idea of the creative economy as a set of particular industries. It's the idea of Trosby, Hoskins, etc. So Trosby is trying to say that creative economy is the different industries where management of creativity occupies central place and the productions result in the products with high degree of symbolic creativity and that are capitalized through the exploitation of the intellectual property. Fashion, design, architecture, gastronomy, advertising, digital platform, etc. So the idea that the exploitation of the intellectual property is the core, part of such creative economy. It's the core process of such creative economy. Of course, the second idea is more or less based on Florida, but also could enlarge by a lot of political programs, the idea that creativity is everywhere and at the same time nowhere, just because this creativity is inside any domain, inside any industry, because be creative means that you can be creative in banking, finance, etc., etc. Of course, it's created very different approaches to the what we call cultural industries and to the what we call the creative industries. If we will take a look on a classification of UNESCO products, they are defining the core cultural domains and related domains. And what is called by Trosby as a creative industries are more or less inside related domains, such as design, architecture, etc. And cultural domains are more or less based on what we call the basic creativity, basic artistic creation, such as audiovisual field, such as music, such as print field, periodical press, etc., etc. Of course, it creates the diversity of approaches at the level of the national policies. If we will take a look and make a comparison between United Kingdom, Germany, France and Spain, we'll find that different terms are used and different, domains are included or excluded from this field. For example, in UK, the domain of creative industries, in France, cultural industries, in Spain, cultural sector, in Germany, culture and creative industries. But, for example, in Germany, the libraries are excluded from the field of culture and creative industries, as well as in UK, which is not the case of France and Spain. But in France, architecture is not included into cultural industries, but in Spain is included inside. Design is presented in UK and Germany, but not in France, in Spain, which is considering, more pure cultural industries, classic, yeah? Then, for example, the fashion. Fashion is presenting only in creative industries concept in UK, in policy. It doesn't exist even, it doesn't used as a term inside the policies of culture and creative industries in Germany. Software industry, also very interesting case, which is considered as a creative in UK and Germany, but not as culture in France and Spain. And vice versa, museums, which are not considered to be creative industries in UK and Germany, but are considered as the cultural domain or cultural industries in Spain and France. So it creates a very different, policies, different approaches to policies, to define these policies, etc. And we can see at least 6 different classifications of what we call creative industries. It could be a classification of the Department of Culture and Sport in UK, DCMS model. It could be the UNESCO classification. It could be basic Hesmond-Dalsh classification, and a lot of, or the idea of symbolic products. So, as we can see, very different domain could be included or excluded from here. So, in some definitions, fashion are inside. In some other definitions, fashion is not related to. The software industry could be considered in Britain as a part of creative industries. In other, in other fields, in other classification, it even could be not presented, or presented and defined as the, we'll say, broader cultural industries. So it's very blurred in terms of policy, how to define this idea of creative industries. So it means that the area is very confusing. Very confusing, because we have about a dozen of classification and models to categorize creative industries, and which drives the manipulation with economic statistics, because it allows different political parties, different political fields, different political forces to use different statistics in order to show this creativity, to show that economy becomes creative without real creativity, etc., etc. So, of course, from this point of view, the term or concept of creativity has been hardly criticized as a political tool of justification of particular economic policies, especially economic decline, lack of public funds, liberalization in particular sectors of economy, commercialization of the public sector, etc., etc. Creative economy or creative industries also should be interpreted as technology-driven project. If we'll take a look on European Green Book, the technology and the availability of broadband infrastructure in urban and rural areas are considered as the new opportunities for creators to produce and distribute their works to wider public. So it means that ICT, or information communication technologies, are interpreted as the one of the driver of the personal creativity and making public the personal creativity, and the very important driver of what we call the self-expression in this field. And self-expression is considered as the new experience creation, etc. So, of course, from this point of view, the digital technologies could be considered as fostering creative industries, because digital environment creates the common basis for many products that becomes visible and massively reproducible under industrial principles. For example, in the field of architecture, the digital world, 3D modeling drives the field, a separate field. Architectures becomes a separate field. Architecture, bureaus, it's not only a part of the, well, say, building sector. It becomes a particular sector where the architectures could exhibit their projects, could, well, say, model them, could present them via digital networks, etc., etc. So, digital design is a new field also, because the idea of digital narratology also is driving the development of this field. Then the advertising field. In the field of advertising, the social media marketing, digital advertising, big data, of course, such terms are very used actually in context of advertising, and of course, as advertising is included often inside the creative industries concept, of course, the digital advertising and the digital concepts of advertising are very important right now. Fashion. And new ways of presenting collection, the digital showrooms, etc., combining added reality, digitally built environment, etc., of course, becomes also one of the driver of the development of this field. And of course, museum and cultural heritage, because we are virtual reality, added reality, digital museums, etc., becomes a new way of existence of this cultural heritage, and of course are also very technologically driven as the projects. Of course, another technological shift is the shift in field of the technological tools of the new creativity, because we have deal actually with the technological platforms for website creation, including infographics, etc. Actually, each people has a open source or for a very modest money access to very easy tools to create different kind of the cultural expressions. Means animation, video at the amateurs level becomes more and more sophisticated, but at the same time more and more easy to use. Yeah? New mounting tools, professionalization. So we have deal with what we call professionalization of the quality. It means that even the iPhone 10 or iPhone 8 has the quality of image for filming, which could be more or less used for the professional filming. So it means that we can assist the fostering of this personal expression technological tools, which allows us to create augmented reality, virtual reality at affordable prices, etc. So we have deal with I will say, technological tools which are deprofessionalized, which are accessible to everyone, etc. And of course, inside all this field, we have deal with what we call determinism, because all that represent a particular determinism, technological determinism. The idea of the determinism, which is based on a digital world, networking world, etc. As has been pointed out by European Green Book, in this new digital economy, immaterial value increasingly determines material value, as consumers are looking for the new and enriching experience. So this is the direct outcome, and this is a direct idea of this technological determinism. The idea that technology actually drives the changes of the experiences of the people, the social experience of the people. So, of course, we have deal also with what we call innovative determinism, the idea of innovation as a core of creative process and technology and main driver for innovation, etc. The idea that innovation will solve all the problems of the humanities. And of course, in this context, the idea of digital economy, which is become very popular right now in a lot of policies, becomes also very clear, very interesting. So all these fields, it's the different ways to combine different fields into one, and trying to say that this one is actually the driver of economy. For example, the digital economy. Of course, from this point of view, from the point of view of technological determinism, creative economy became a continuation of the information economy concept, or the concept of the what we call information society. So at the center of this technological determinism, we can find the idea of information society, and this is a very old idea, coming from the middle of the 20th century, and which has been few times reincarnated under different definitions, starting from definition of the information society by Daniel Bell. Then we can refer here also to the concept of Manuel Castells, the networked society, the society where the idea of impact of information technologies and network principle on organization of society is core, yeah, and the idea that it will emerge the new dominant social relations, the networked relations between people, and instead hierarchy, we will obtain the society with the networks of different interests, clusters of idea, and networks are based on the information circulation. So It means that this idea of creative economy or creative industries, etc., is the kind of development of the same idea, similar idea of the information economy, which is based on a very widespread usage for elaborating of national policies in ICT field, in economy, in small business, entrepreneurial policies, etc. Is the idea of that goals of such programs could be measurable. So the measurability of goals for such products, for such programs of informationalization or products of information economy, the programs in field of ICT development, etc., is the infrastructure. Infrastructure as a king will say. Yeah, you are just measuring number of computer for 100 population, and you are obtaining the measurable goal, which you can improve each year, from year by year. So it's very simple at the level of the national policy to implement, to control, to we'll say to managerialize practices of this control, of course. And of course, this is the determinism of some kind. Knowledge society, education society, knowledge economy, education economy, information economy, network-based economy. So it's the idea that you can build economy on a particular one factor: economy of knowledge, economy of information, etc. That's why we speak about such concept as deterministic one, because it's out the complexity of the world. And of course, this idea of information society was very popular in different state policies, and sometimes very different confusing terms was used: information society, information economy, knowledge economy, economy of knowledge, etc. And we can refer to few documents here, few state documents, such as report by Nora and Dylan Mink in France, moving to the information society, or the concept of Albert Gore during the Clinton's time in United States, presidency information superhighway concept, or Martin Bangemann concept of information for everyone in European Union, etc. And around that we can find a lot of scholars of futurology, such as Alvin Toffler or Daniel Bell, who used more or less this term, information society or society of information. And of course, the logical continuation of that became the Castell's idea, the idea of enlarging the information society by penetrating technological inside the social, penetrating technological principle of networked organization into social level, by saying that yes, information technology are organized at the networking principle, and actually all our society is organized under this network principle. The idea that we have deal actually with the global companies, which are networks, or networks of global companies, networks of global economy, even networks of mafia, etc., etc. So the idea that network becomes the universal principle of the social organizations. And of course, in this concept, the information and humanity obtain a particular humanitarian category, losing its technocentric idea, but the determinism is still present here. And for example, we can see this determinism in a new way of interpreting the networking world, especially the world of social media, where social media becomes a driver of the, we'll say, social change, political changes, etc., etc. And Castell studied the network as universal principles of social organization in different fields. And he's trying to argue that, for example, in one of his latest books, Networks of Outrage and Hope, he's trying to argue that the new media, the so-called social media, created what we call the networking activism, renewed the way to express political thoughts and the way to make the political actions. And he's studying a lot of different, we'll say, organizations, different revolutions such as Arab Spring, so-called Arab Spring revolutions in Egypt and Tunisia, or it could be Intignados in Spain, or it could be, I don't know, the movement Occupy Wall Street, etc. And he's trying to point out that we have deal with a new networked activism. And a lot of social analysts using actually this term. It's also one of this form of this, we'll say, networked or new media determinism we can find actually in a lot of social sciences. Of course, such determinism has been few times criticized because it ignores the complexity of the world, of the contemporary societies, and the main essence of their social organizations. For Marxists, for example, such ideas of information society or creative economy, etc., are ignoring capitalistic organization of the society and new forms of exploitation. Any Marxist will say you that creative economy is the capitalist economy, and from this point of view, you can't say that this is a creative economy. It's just the economy which is based on a new principle of exploitation inside the capitalistic society. For anthropologists, such theories are ignoring cultural effects and local culture, largely distorting any global influence or global policies, etc. So the idea that there is no universal rules, that there is no universal creativity, that there is no universal creativeness, universal innovation, etc. Any innovation has cultural roots which will be different from the country to another country, from culture to another culture. We should employ the term creative policy or policy in field of creativity also in terms of social development, because creativity has been a lot of times, we'll say, interpreted as a new way to develop societies. So this idea of the social development is one of the core idea of the creativity and vice versa. So first of all, we should stress that creativity has been historically considered as the employment policy, as the policy in field of employment. Because one of the main expected outcomes in creative industries policies was to increase the number of workplaces and jobs, especially what we call the self-occupied workplaces and jobs. And such objectives figures among DCMS, Department of Culture, Media and Sport documents, and European Union documents. In DCMS definition, for example, we can find that those industries which have their origin in individual creativity, skill and talent, and which have a potential for wealth and job creation through the generation and exploitation of intellectual property. So, and of course it creates the particular idea of precarious worker, or the worker who is soft or flexible in his work. His work is flexible, his work hours are flexible. And this idea of what we call precariat as analog to proletariat in Marxist ideology, in Marxist social theory, the idea that we have deal actually with a new social class of precarious worker, someone who is working for himself, someone who is underpaid, and someone who is working not for money but for pleasure. And of course, this idea of pleasure becomes central in this field. So the idea of cultural outcomes also is driving such kind of social, we'll say, welfare, social effects. For example, the idea that creative development and policy could improve cultural skills of the public. If we will take a look on the European Green Book, we can find this sentence: building on our rich and diverse cultures, Europe must pioneer new ways of creating value added, but also of living together, sharing resources, and enjoy diversity. So the idea that cultural skills of public, you can develop such cultural skills of public, and they at their turn will develop the employment policy, the general development of economy, etc., etc. So the idea of sustainability effect, yeah, the idea of such intercultural skills which will improve this creativity is under this idea, of course. Finally, what kind of critique we can do? Once we speak about creativity as a form of employment policy or economic policy, and especially social development policy, first of all, we have to deal with a new form of exploitation, and some scholars are pointing out this idea. We have to deal with the idea that you are just working for pleasure, for self-expression, not as a commodity to sell. So it means that probably you should be agreed to be underpaid, but you have a job which is pleasure for you. So it means that the part of creative worker's job is paid not with the money, but with this pleasure, this feeling creative. I'm feeling creative myself. That's why I'm agree to earn less money, but to have a pleasure, to have a flexible working hours, etc. And this idea also, of course, could justify the decline in jobs, in marketing, in making such jobs creative, and by developing precariat, self-employment, etc. Vice versa, instead of development the industrial policies, instead of protecting workers and labor, etc., etc. So, of course, this critique is very present in modern social theories. This critique against this policy of creativity. And here I will invite you to watch a video by our colleague Angela McRobbie from Goldsmith College, who will present her critical argument against this idea, be creative, this idea of being creative.
And Tony Blair said this very clearly. There is no guarantees about the outcome from studying in this sector. You know, you're not guaranteed. It's not going to deliver you into a job for life. There is a sense of uncertainty in the outcome. And this was very much what Tony Blair talked about when he launched the ill-fated Cool Britannia campaign, that let's celebrate Britain's talent, Britain's cultural economy. And you know what? We don't quite know where it will lead to. We don't quite know what sort of jobs it's going to see into being. So what I put it in terms of the pleasure and the romance actually were compensations for work without protection. So the excitement, the invitation, the idea of self-expressive work was, if you like, the compensation, the positive reward for jobs that possibly did not bring protection in the way that protection in the public sector professional jobs in the past meant sickness entitlements, maternity leave, a pension, social insurance, unemployment benefits, and so on.